Hello everyone and thank you for joining me. Today I will be attempting to have some fun with something that comes from Platinum, I think, and that unfortunately is not made any longer and it's actually kind of hard to find nowadays. When I bought it a couple of years back, it was advertised as a vintage Platinum Pocket fountain pen. I do not have a model number. I tried to do a little bit of research about it, but I could not find it anywhere on the web, or at least could not find it in any of the search results Google threw back at me. I believe I did show it one time back when I showed the other more modern version of the Platinum Pocket fountain pen that I have, and I attempted to use the converter from this older version into it. This older model, it's a very interesting one, to me at least. It is built on the same blueprint as all the other pocket fountain pens that are coming from Japan. A long cap covering a long comfortable section with a very short barrel. This specific one has a few scrapes and bruises, but is still holding up pretty well and, it gives a little bit more character, I guess. It has a simple, clean and functional hinge clip that sits on the cap that slips over the section and barrel very smooth and quite secure. One distinct feature on this old model is that it came with a semi-hooded steel nib, which makes it, very unique I guess in my eyes. And the other cool feature is that this fountain pen also comes with its own pipette style converter. Not the most amazing converter out there, but better than nothing I guess. Speaking of converters, for today's ink I have decided to use the Pilot Iroshizuku Take-Sumi ink. The only platinum ink that I have is the carbon black ink, and I do not want to use that ink in this specific pen since I don't want to potentially ruin it. Sometimes the carbon black ink is a little bit of a pain to clean and fully remove it from a pen, and since this pen has a very deep section basically, it will be very hard to clean it properly. And also, since this fountain pen is using this pipette style converter and these things are usually easily defeated by gravity, I am doing my usual syringe fill up where I fill the converter with ink, then I push the ink through the section and feed to saturate it, and then I refill the converter back up. One thing to note on these fountain pens is that the feed can hold quite a lot of ink, so do not be surprised if it takes a little bit for the ink to come through it or out of it. And if by any chance you do not like this type of converter, then I believe that you can actually use a regular cartridge from Platinum. I did try an empty one before talking about this, and it seems to fit in quite snug, and I assume it will seal properly, but I did not try one with ink, so I don't know if it will seal properly. I assume it does though, based on how it feels. When it came to writing, the nib is surprisingly pleasant on the paper. Smooth feeling with a very little bit of feedback, just perfect for sketching I would say, or at least that's how it felt on this Muji paper. One thing that I can't get over it is how light it feels, almost like a feather, but not in an uncomfortable way. And it feels very well balanced. And I'll be honest, when I was doing the writing, all I was thinking is, can't wait to start drawing with it, and I hope I won't be disappointed by it. And yes, this is the first time I'm actually using this fountain pen. Even though I had it in my collection for a while now, I have never inked it up until now. Now I did use the converter with the newer version, but that didn't work out, so the converter is not the first time it sees ink, let's put it that way. One other surprising thing that I noticed while I was doing the writing sample is that you can get a little bit of line variation out of it. Obviously it's not a flex nib, so if by any chance you get to have one of these, don't over push it, you could sprung the nib very easily, but it is pleasant to see that it's capable of more than just very thin lines. So anyway, enough beating around the bush now, and let me dive in a Scribble with this old beaut and see what it can do. Alright, Alright, the scribble for today. Well, the scribble for today for me was more of an exercise in trying to draw a type of cone. I haven't practiced too much with this kind of shape, and personally I do have some issues when it comes to repetitive patterns like this cone specifically has. Especially something that repeats and at the same time spirals around the shape. What you see is kind of my second attempt at this drawing. The first attempt, it's actually on the back of the same page. I wasn't very pleased with the overall shape on the first try, so I just turned the page and, well, tried it again. Top tip, you have the reverse. Use it if in a bind. I think I still skewed the shape a little bit in the second try, but I liked it more than the first time, so I just carried on. It still kind of passes a little bit as a cone, I guess, even though it's not perfectly oval, or as you probably would expect it, I screwed up that top part a little bit. But in the end, it's still okay in my books. As usual, most of the time was spent in scribbling the shape and values by just moving the pen around. And it took a little bit of time, and I just kind of relaxed and, kind of take it in and let myself carried away by the lines. One thing though that I noticed while I was doing the drawing, and I mean it's not the first time I'm noticing it, I've noticed this on my previous drawings as well, but it seems that I have some trouble since I switched to this larger piece of paper. I tend to skew things a little bit more than I want to, probably because for me at least when I'm sitting down it's harder to see the overall shape, since I have to, extend a little bit more than my eyes can cover when sitting down. So I did one exercise today and I tried to stand up a little bit while drawing to see the, larger view of the whole image. And then it's when I realized that my shading is not that ideal. So this happened towards the end of the drawing, so I did work a little bit the shading a little bit more as I was standing. And I think I saved it a little bit more. I don't know, maybe. But my takeaway from this is probably in the future, for this larger piece of paper, I'm going to try and stand more from time to time so I can see the larger image. And probably will be more beneficial to do it, especially at the beginning of the drawing, just to make sure I get the overall shape properly on the page and balanced. So in the end, overall, fun drawing, I would say, and I definitely enjoy spending the time watching those lines appearing on the piece of paper. It was fun. I think I say that for every drawing that I do, but it's true. Now, the fountain pen on this paper did felt a little bit drier than it felt on the Muji paper. For whatever reason on this Fabriano paper, maybe because it's not as smooth as the Muji paper, it felt quite dry. And in some parts, depending on how fast I was moving my hand, it was skipping quite a lot. I did use that to my advantage, however, so I did get it working. I didn't mind, but it also did take me a little bit longer to cover some areas, especially at the end where I was trying to kind of shade the overall shape of the cone, not just the individual, I wouldn't know what you want to call them, segments of the cone. I don't know what's the proper term for that. I also think that the ink that I use might not help it. Iroshizuku, as far as I noticed and from what I read as well, some of their inks in some pens feel a little bit more drier and not as flowy. In hindsight, in the future, especially for this one, I will try and use maybe a wetter ink, maybe something like Private Reserve or maybe the old and reliable Parker ink or something like that. Other than that, the fountain pen performed as I would have expecting it to be, very, very comfortable to hold and work with. I had absolutely zero kind of fatigue or any kind of pain in my fingers or on my fingers based on how I was holding it. So overall, I would say it's a very solid fountain pen from my perspective, and if by any chance you find it and it has a good price, I personally have no issue recommending it. Again, keep in mind that it's a vintage fountain pen, so it's not a new fountain pen unless you are lucky enough to find it in a new old stock condition. They all have their own little characters depending on the owners that, well, they used it before. Also keep in mind that this is a little bit lighter than the other newer platinum pocket fountain pen that I reviewed a little bit earlier in my YouTube career. And it's also a little bit shorter, not by much, but it is. So maybe that's why it feels a little bit lighter. So if you do not like light fountain pens, then maybe the newer version is better for you, which can be found much easier anyway. And I think that's about it for my ramblings. I'm not sure what else I could add, so it is time for me to shut it and let you enjoy the rest of the Scribble, wherever it's left out of it, in peace and quiet. As usual, if you have comments, leave them below. I will reply to them as soon as I get the chance. Wish you all the best and a wonderful day or night, wherever you are. Take care. Bye.